ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
He's worth more than $1 billion. Christopher Skase buys Warwick Capper for the Brisbane Bears.
He paid me the most cash because I was the best player.
But...
Skase was essentially a hustler and a huckster.
And he gets away with the biggest corporate crash in Australia. I'm Mark Humphreys. Search for ABC Rewind and look for Skase, Fall of a Tycoon on the ABC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Anthony Albanese has addressed the UN General Assembly in New York, confirming Australia's recognition of a Palestinian state. But a face-to-face meeting with Donald Trump, expected on the sidelines, well, it never eventuated. So, should we care if the Prime Minister never sits down with the US President? Today, Global Affairs Editor Laura Tingle joins us from New York. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Laura, there will be no meeting between Donald Trump and Anthony Albanese in New York, which, let's face it, is hardly surprising, right?
It's not really all that surprising, Sam. I think there's a certain, not finality to it, but yeah. I think it certainly removes any doubt, Sam, that we are in the sin bin with President Trump, or the Prime Minister is, whichever way you want to look at it. This was obviously an opportunity for him to meet with the Prime Minister in his own country, and I think the sort of chill factor was rather amplified by the fact that the White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt today listed a whole range of countries and their leaders who President Trump will be meeting with, and Australia was a notable absentee from that.
The President will also be hosting bilateral meetings with the UN Secretary General. The President will also later in the day hold a multilateral meeting with Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Turkey, Pakistan, Egypt.
Yeah, so he will be meeting the UN Secretary-General and the leaders of Ukraine, Argentina and the European Union, but no to Anthony Albanese.
No, and apparently New Zealand. New Zealand is being snubbed as well, so you know, it's not just us.
Okay. We're in good company then.
Indeed.
Well, probably lucky then that the Prime Minister was continually hedging his bets every time he was asked about this, right?
He was.
There's been so much talk about whether or not you're getting a face-to-face meeting with Donald Trump.
Only by journos.
Will you have a face-to-face meeting with Donald Trump?
Well, when we do, you'll know about it.
It is journalists who are obsessed by this.
It's a question I've asked many others, Prime Minister.
I refer to my previous 5,324 answers to that same question.
I think the government's been pretty resigned to this sort of stuff for some months, and look, frankly, is it a bad thing? I don't know. Domestically, obviously people go, it's bad that he can't see him, but I think President Trump's stocks have been sort of falling a bit around the world in recent times, and we've all seen that it doesn't necessarily do people a lot of good meeting with him. So you know, it's a bit of a hard judgment to make about how much damage it does to the Prime Minister domestically. Does it affect the Australian relationship with America? Probably, but let's think about what the underlying trajectory is here. I mean, at the UN, as we speak, Australia is taking quite different positions on significant issues from the US. The recognition of Palestine is one, climate is another, and there's also a question about whether President Trump would like Australia's social media ban, because some of his tech mates might not like it. So it's different times.
Yeah. Why don't we just now turn to that UN Assembly meeting in New York? The focus, of course, has been on Palestinian statehood, and along with France, Britain and Canada, we backed that. Now, just tell me about Anthony Albanese's speech to the Assembly. Was there anything that really stuck out to you in that?
Look, I don't think so. It was pretty much what we had expected. He's basically sort of trying to say, well, look, we think what happened on October 7 is terrible, but what has happened subsequently is sort of worse.
Tens of thousands of civilians have been killed. Desperate people, including children, denied vital aid. Aid workers killed, including Australian Zomi Frankham. Such conduct risks putting a two-state solution beyond reach.
And I think he's arguing, as a lot of other people are, that, look, there's only one way to resolve this, which is that both peoples have a right to feel safe behind their own borders. And, he says Australia recognises the legitimate and long-held aspirations of the Palestinian people, which means more than a seat, a voice and a vote in the councils of the world. It means real hope for a place they can call home. That is the same hope that sustained generations of Jewish people. And, of course, he's emphasising the fact that Australia was one of the first signatories to the United Nations move, which actually established the State of Israel in lands which were occupied by the Palestinians.
Recognising the aspirations of the Palestinian people is about more than a seat, a voice and a vote in the councils of the world. It is about real hope for a place to call home. This is the same hope that sustained generations of Jewish people.
He urged the Israeli government to accept its share of responsibility for the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Now, they're comments that Israel will not like.
And I think that's also interesting. I think, you have seen, there's been so much caution about saying anything that would upset Israel for so long during this horrible conflict going back to 2023. And Australia has been reluctant to directly criticise Israel for a lot of that time. And I think one of the significant changes that comes about with the recognition of Palestine and with Australia signing up to the so-called New York Declaration, of which recognition is a part, I think it really does suggest that the language against Israel is going to be tougher, as you've alluded to, and possibly actions against Israel will also start to toughen up as well.
Right now, Gaza is in the grip of a humanitarian catastrophe, and the Israeli government must accept its share of responsibility.
Yeah, well, the US president, of course, doesn't agree with this move. His press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, who you spoke of before, when she was asked about this, she said that he thinks it's a counterproductive move because it does not bring the hostages home, which should actually be the priority.
This decision. He feels this does not do anything to release the hostages, which is the primary goal right now in Gaza, does nothing to end this conflict and bring this war to a close. And frankly, he believes it's a reward to Hamas.
Is there some sense in that?
Well, I suppose what's become pretty clear in the last few weeks is that there's nobody was really expecting the US to sign up to Palestinian statehood, but if anything, the signs are that Donald Trump's going harder in the opposite direction, if you like, and has been much more supportive of Israel in its actions on Gaza. So there are two questions. One of them is, does what Anthony Albanese say affect our relationship with the US? Then there's the broader question of, is Donald Trump right that it's not going to bring the hostages home? Well, it's a really tricky question, but when Donald Trump makes those comments, he's really reflecting the Israeli position. And it's become, I think, quite complicated, Sam, because Israel just keeps escalating. You've got ministers now talking about annexing the West Bank in retaliation for the recognition of Palestine. You've then got the Saudis saying, well, if you annex the West Bank, Israel, all hope of closer ties with us are going down the drain. That's a pretty big thing for Israel to contemplate. I don't think at this stage it's going to back down, but there are consequences here. And the fact that the Arab League and Saudi Arabia are taking such a big role in all of this, it sort of highlights the issue that if the whole question is trying to get security for Israel in the region, if it's actually worsening its relationships with other countries in the region, just as they were starting to improve in more recent years, that's not really a recipe for stability or peace for anybody.
Benjamin Netanyahu, he has said it's an anti-Semitic move. And it doesn't matter what any of these countries have said, Australia, France, Britain, Canada, there will be no Palestinian state.
I have a clear message for those leaders who recognise a Palestinian state after the horrific massacre on October 7th. You are giving a huge reward to terrorism. And I have another message for you. It will not happen.
Now, here, the opposition leader, Susan Lee, she will back out of this if she's ever elected to government at 1,000,000 miles an hour. She's actually sent a letter, hasn't she, to Republican members of Congress promising that.
Yes, that rather surprised me. That seemed like a rather, what's the word, preemptive thing at this particular stage of proceedings. I mean, of course, some of those Republicans have been talking about, action against Australia if we signed up to this. So I'm not quite sure why she's gone in quite so hard about this. You've got to sort of see that, I think, in domestic political terms, but I just think that it's become a bit messier than just playing this at a domestic level for both sides of politics now. And the important thing about this statehood move really is the fact that it's not just Australia, of course. It's a move that's been led by France and Saudi Arabia. There are 10 countries today, including Australia, who were recognising Palestine for the first time.
Le temps est venu. C'est pourquoi.
Time has come. This is why, loyal to my country's historic commitment to the Middle East, for peace among Israeli people and Palestinian people, I declare that France recognises today the state of Palestine.
The historic decision of the British government to recognise the state of Palestine.
Canada recognises the state of Palestine.
There's now something like 142 countries that recognise Palestine. With France and the UK recognising Palestine, that means 4 out of 5 of the Permanent Security Council members now recognise Palestine. So, there is a sort of sense of, there was power in the fact that so many countries were speaking in support of Palestinian statehood in the UN General Assembly.
All right. Well, Laura, Donald Trump himself, of course, will be addressing the Assembly after, of course, this recording. It sounds like, though, from Carolyn Levitt, that it will be along the lines of America first.
Well, yes, she's sort of talked about the president. He's going to be giving a major speech touting the renewal of American strength around the world and his historic accomplishments in just 8 months, including the ending of 7 global wars.
Tomorrow morning, President Trump will deliver a major speech touting the renewal of American strength around the world, his historic accomplishments in just 8 months, including the ending of...
But he's also going to touch upon how globalist institutions have significantly decayed the world order.
And he will articulate his straightforward and constructive vision for the world.
And we'll also be talking about Palestinian statehood. So he's going to sort of be throwing a few more rocks in the pool, as they say. There's been a lot of anxiety about what he would say about UN funding, which of course he's already cut back savagely since returning to the White House. And that whole idea of walking away from multilateralism, apart from anything else, is a cause of considerable concern to the multilateral community, if we can call them that, here in New York.
All right. Well, Laura, Anthony Albanese, he's missed out on a meeting with Trump again, right? Because he also missed out on a planned meeting with the US president after the G7 summit in Canada when Trump left early. They have spoken on the phone, right? But is it actually important that these two men sit face-to-face in a room together or stand up just for 5 minutes face-to-face, or does it just not really matter at this point?
I think it does matter. I mean, are we going to have a situation where for the entire term the two leaders of countries which are supposed to be, the firmest of friends and the closest of allies don't talk? I mean, it's pretty extraordinary, but there's still options, of course. I mean, there was an excuse on the earlier summit because he did leave because of other issues going on. But we're in summit season now. They'll both be in Kuala Lumpur, I think, and in South Korea. So there are still opportunities for them to meet. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Oh, gosh. And so Anthony Albanese will be continually asked about this potential meeting for months and months ahead.
The question that will not die.
All right, Laura, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Sam.
Laura Tingle is the ABC's Global Affairs editor. This episode was produced by Jessica Wukyanov. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our acting supervising producer is Sydney Peed. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.